Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan, and this is a bonus episode. I have two guests, only one you can see right now. So I have Kate Wallace and I have Harriet Van Vleck from the Merrymeeting Food Council in Maine, my home state. And they wanted to talk about the Farm Skills Program, which is going to be starting a new cohort in the spring, I assume. And they have a deadline to join the next cohort of February 1st. So we wanted to get this out as soon as possible. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining. If you don't mind telling a little bit about the Merrymeeting Food Council and also, definitely the Farm Skills Program so that people can get excited and learn more about that.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Amy. So I'll talk a little bit about the background of the Food Council and the Farm Skills Program, and then Kate can fill in some details. Um, so the Merrymeeting Food Council formed in late 2015 after a series of stakeholder meetings that were run by Kennebec Estuary Land Trust and Brunswick Chopsom Land Trust to kind of gauge what was needed to build a more connected, resilient, sustainable local food system in the sort of greater Bath Brunswick region. Um, and the Food Council serves 14 towns within that region. So it's all of Saginaw County and parts of Lincoln and parts of Cumberland. Um, and the mission of the Food Council that was created at that point, out of several years of stakeholder meetings, was to advance a thriving, resilient, and equitable food system that supports the health and natural resources of our communities. Um, and we have kind of three core goals. One is to connect consumers to affordable, healthy, local, and sustainable food through communication, education, and increased access. To support the production, processing, and distribution of Maine food and the needs of Maine food system workers, and then to strengthen the local food system by building a resilient and connected food system network.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is around kind of being that connector between different parts of our local food system.
Yeah.
I'll pause there.
And that's so important, of course. So is the Kennebec, I forget the name of that, but is that no longer a thing, or is that like you connecting? You're like the middle person for both of. That was a lot of words that you just gave, and
It's fine. So
I'm familiar with what they do, but I sort of thought that those went away, and then you became, but that's not how it is.
no, so we still operate. We're not a nonprofit. We're still run as a program of multiple nonprofits in the region. Um, and that's intentional to remain as a network as opposed to one more nonprofit. And so Kennebec Estuary Land Trust and Brunswick Chopsom Land Trust act as fiscal managers for us. So they hold the grant funds that support our work.
Okay.
So we are still sort of run through them. Other organizations like Midcoast Hunger Prevention Program and Growing to Give have also become really core partners.
Gotcha. Okay. And folks that have been listening for a while know that I volunteered with the Growing to Give folks for many years, and so we're very familiar with the Farm Skills Program. But so the Farm Skills Program, can you talk about that a little bit, either of you, just so that because the deadline is February 1st, which is I'm going to try to get this out on today, which is Sunday the 26th, and so it's this Saturday, right? The deadline.
First is the deadline. Yeah.
Okay. And so I want people to, I think that as a big fan of farmers, I want to promote the crap out of this because we need more farmers. We definitely need more farmers. And so learning the skills ahead of time is going to be super duper helpful.
Um, so the history of the program is that it evolved out. We did not go into this work planning to run a farm skills training program. But we had been hearing for several years that farm labor shortages were a real challenge for our local farms. So we brought together partners, state departments, farmers, other ag service providers from across the state. And this is that was late 2019, and this is one of the outcomes of that roundtable focused on farm labor shortages. Um, and so what we created was a program that builds on a lot of existing resources. And that's sort of how that's the approach we take. We never create something that some other entity that's already a nonprofit organization could create on their own, but we try and build connections across existing organizations and build on existing capacity. So it happened, a lot of the training happens at Growing to Give, which is a food bank farm. So all the food the trainees are growing is food for donation. We work with cooperative extension educators. We work with local farmers to come in and do workshops. So we're building on their existing resources, and the Food Council is sort of the threads, holds all the threads.
Sure. I just think it's so important, especially like with the shortage of farmers, there's this crisis that's coming that, we have to import more food because there are less farmers. But there's always like new information like technology and stuff. And I think that it can be really helpful to learn all these options ahead of time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump in here. This is Kate. I'm the current coordinator of the Farm Skills program. Harriet ran it the first year, and then I took over, and this is the third year that I'm running it. So this is our fourth year doing the program, and it's evolved in really cool ways. So we have anywhere between 9 and 12 participants, um, and there are kind of two components to the program. So there's the Growing to Give portion, which Amy, you mentioned a little bit. Harriet said Growing to Give is a food bank farm, a nonprofit farm, and they run a sort of an internship component of the program where participants go once a week for 4 hours and learn basic farm skills like seed starting, bed prep, transplanting, weeding, harvesting. Growing to Give is a no-till farm, and so there is a lot of human labor input required. So it's a really great place for people to learn all of those hands-on skills. And then the second component of the program, um, participants come twice a week for a couple hours each time, and they learn things that are essential to farming, like basic soil science, greenhouse management, good body mechanics, how to use hand tools and small farm equipment, tractor safety. And then we also have some like less sort of traditional skills that they learn sessions on, like farm worker rights and the history of farm worker rights, a farm worker panel where we bring in a few different farm workers and people get to talk to them about, what is it like to really work on a farm. Communication skills, that was something we heard from farmers as we designed the program, was how important, if not more important, those skills are than like the hands-on stuff. And then things like resume writing, job interviews, digital and financial literacy, things that we really want to set people up for success in their career path, whatever they choose, whether it's to go work on a farm or whether it's something else.
That's
So those are
fantastic.
the bones of the program.
That's amazing. I only knew about the part that happened where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is, that's a really essential part too, right? Like people get to work half a day on a farm and sort of get a sense of what that's like. And, for some people, I mean, one of our goals in the program is to get people out and working on farms, but another goal is to actually let people see what it's like to work on a farm and then have them be able to make, an informed decision about whether it's a path that they want to choose for themselves. And so, another thing that we heard was that it's really hard for farmers to train a person for 6 weeks to then have them decide that farming isn't a good fit. And so, if we can get to them first and have them decide, hey, this is not for me, but maybe there's another path in the food system that I want to pursue, that's great. We're thrilled with that.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the farm worker rights and the, learning about the digital part. So it's also important. I mean, the older generations they don't have that going in. So it's like a learn as you go type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is really it's a multi-generational program. I mean, we have everything. Last year, I think we had 9 participants finish the program, and they ranged in age from 15 to early 60s. So we really get a diversity in age, and that's really fun.
Super.
The other piece, Amy, that I want to highlight too is we partner with Goodwill Workforce Solutions. And so most of the participants in the program are employed through Workforce Solutions, or we can support them on grant funds, but everyone is paid. This year it's $15 an hour is what we can offer. So they're paid $15 an hour throughout the training program. Goodwill also offers career support. So each participant is paired one-on-one with a career advisor that helps them set their goals, helps them, if they have barriers like they haven't gotten their driver's license yet and they just need some help getting those pieces put in place to get their driver's license. Their career advisor can help them with that. Or, we also help support finding childcare. We help with transportation. We find that at least half of our applicants need some support on transportation. And so we can do that through either gas cards or a taxi to the training program. So we try and figure out ways to overcome any barriers. So if this is a career pathway that someone wants to explore, we don't want there to be small-ish things like transportation that get in the way of that. And we try and find longer-term solutions if something like transportation is a problem. Okay, once they finish the program, how are they going to continue to overcome that barrier?
Right. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. So it doesn't cost anything to apply or to be part of the farm skills program, and you get paid. So it's like working.
Paid training program.
What? All right. I'm this I gosh, I wish I was there. That's amazing. I mean, that's really, really cool. And it's so I love that you're just working with so many different organizations that are supporting this. And that's just so important. So what so I know that Kate, you were talking about the different skills, but so what I've seen is, at what I've seen is that growing the give. And so like broad forking and the no-till processes. And so are there other farms included?
Yeah, there are a number of different farms that we visit, and we do that by design because we want people to see a range of practices and decide what sort of best fits their goals or ideas for where they might want to work. Let's see, we visit farms like Stone Cipher Farm in Bodenham that are also no-till on a much larger scale than Growing to Give and like a commercial operation, not a nonprofit. We visit Watley Farm in Topsham, which Ben had sort of experimented with no-till and decided that he wanted to revert back to some sort of tillage. And then we go to farms like Harvest Tide in Bodenham that is like primarily tractor based, and they're doing a large acreage with primarily tractor farming. And so it's great. People have different ideas of how they want to work on the land, and so they get to see that range of practices.
Fantastic. I love the idea of like feeling it out and seeing what kind of practice fits you better. And that's
Yeah, and
the variety of all, because it Watley is like a in between and and Harvest Tide, of course, they're humongous CSA, and so that's a humongous farm. That's a hard thing to do with just human labor.
yeah, and the other thing that we try to do in terms of supporting folks, we definitely have people who, like last year, an example, we had a high school student come into the program who was interested in learning about farming. He really loved to work on small machines and engines, so he was more drawn towards the tractor side of things, the larger scale side of things. But he also had a goal of someday starting an orchard, and so we were able to support him and even pay him to do some supplemental orcharding workshops and classes and things. So, our program, the Farm Skills program, is primarily focused on growing vegetables. We do have a workshop where we visit a livestock operation and sort of get a sense of how to integrate animals into a vegetable operation. But we try to also keep it loose so that if people have particular interests, we can get them going in that direction as well.
That's so much. That is very cool. I mean, there are just so many different ways that people can grow vegetables and farm so it's good that they can see all and then you can make it your own to see how everyone else is doing it.
One other thing to add is, part of the farm tour piece of it is going and seeing the different farms and how they operate, but it's also getting a better sense of connection to the community and to the food producing community around you, and empowering the folks that are in the program to know who's out there, to get a sense of the personalities of the different farmers in the community, and to feel prepared in that sense to go and apply for a job, because that's the next step potentially for some
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of my I
social.
yeah, I'm such a fan of farmers and I love going to the farmers markets and communicating with them and knowing where my food is coming from, that type of thing. And I think that's also a big part of being a farmer these days because it's not like so much like an introverted thing. You have to go outside of that a little bit. So that's so cool. Oh my gosh. Um, what else do you guys want to talk about the farm skills program? Anything else that needs to be touched on?
You know, I will just say one thing that we talk about a lot is, and I've sort of touched on this already, this idea that obviously we are thrilled if people decide that they finish the program and they want to go on and work on farms, and that's great. Like we're, helping to, like you said, sort of bring energy and work into this more localized food system, which is really essential. But another broad goal of the program is just to increase food security overall. And we've had definitely a handful of participants who decide that farming is not for them. And they've also learned all of these skills so that they can go now and have like this fire lit under them to grow some of their own food. And like that to us is a huge success. We had a person last year who, um, once the weather got really hot and the days got hard, she was like, this is not the right thing. And she wrote me recently and said that she just started the master horticulture program through the cooperative extension. So there
Fantastic.
are lots of different, paths that people can take, and especially for the younger folks, we get a lot of high school kids who come and do the program. We have great connections in the high schools to spread the word about this. And, the impact of that for me, it just feels really huge for a young person to take this training. We just have no idea what they're going to go out into the world and do with it. And so that is impact, even if they're not just getting funneled into the workforce on a Maine farm.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, maybe it won't work out to be a commercial farmer, but they have those skills and you're right. You're right, Kate. Like they might not be a, legit farmer, but they're gonna have those skills and they can go and grow their own food, which is something that they weren't doing before, or, and maybe provide for their neighbors and maybe not like a huge community, but they're having local food of their own and they have a better understanding of everything. And I love that they communicate back and they're like, farming wasn't for me because I am not a farmer because I do not like the heat. And I would so do that farmer skills class if I thought that I could do that. But I cannot. I volunteered from 8 to 10 in the morning on Saturdays before it gets hot. Um, but I love that so much because it's not even, if they go on to be farmers, that's amazing. If they go on to grow their own food, that's also amazing. Or to manage a farm or take a horticulture class and to do something in agriculture because we need that. We need more local seasonal food grown. I don't know why I have my morning voice still. But thank you guys so much for that. I love learning about that. And there's so much that I didn't know about the farm skills class, but it's all good. My gosh.
If we think about the bigger context too, Amy, Maine has set these significant goals of ending hunger by 2030. And yeah,
Big goal
we've got a
and
ways to
so
go.
good.
And having Mainers consume 30% local food by 2030, we are at currently about 3 to 4%. So we're importing 97% let's say, of the food that we consume. So as you and Kate were just discussing, even if it's just one person who goes through the program and they're able to produce a little bit more of their own food, that gets us each step closer. Each
Yeah,
is a step closer to being more sustainable and towards reaching those goals. Um, both the ending hunger and excuse me, and
I got it too.
more local food.
Right. Oh my goodness. I
And I
just
think
think,
also like the connect having sort of one other outcome that I think is really important to think about is, if we can foster a little bit more sense of connection to place and to how our food is produced and to who is producing, a sense of connection and responsibility to who is producing our food as well. That the more we all start to think about those questions, the more questions we have as we go and interact with the world and make choices as consumers and as community members. So
100%.
the sustainability piece.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And working together, like building a team and seeing how that will work. I always think of the farm skills class as like younger people, but like you were saying, you had someone in their 60s. And I just think that's wonderful for people to learn from each other and how things work and how, I know all the farmers have their own ideas, and then to have, these people that are just learning, like maybe there's a new way that is it's unconventional, but it also works. I just think that there's so much that we can all learn from each other. I just think it's wonderful. I can't believe that this is not everywhere. Maybe is it everywhere? Do you know?
Not this exact model. There are, and the state is working right now, they're doing a sort of landscape scan of all the ag workforce programs that exist across the state and trying to think through, more holistically, how do we create a more sustainable, um, viable
Yeah.
agricultural workforce in Maine. Um,
So
that
Harriet, did you develop this? Like, is this your baby?
um, Me and several other people. We had, I think, 10 different organizations were part of the planning process. So we spent kind of a year and a half really during the start of the pandemic over Zoom meetings planning out, how does this complement the existing programs across the state of Maine and how can we build on this? What do we need to do that's different than the programs that already exist? And so that paid piece, being able to support the transportation, the childcare, the workforce clothing, food access, those sort of and the career advisor support pieces were pieces that we as a collective felt were super important to add in, and that we're missing from sort of traditional apprenticeship programs that, sometimes are unpaid or, barely minimum wage and didn't have a lot of those additional supports.
Right. I mean, it just seems like I mean, I think of I mean, I clearly did not know that much about it, but I was like, learning to be a farmer, that's very cool, but like it's such a time commitment. Like it would be hard to um sort of not justify, but like, it's just a time commitment that I don't really have if I'm not making money. And so the fact that you're actually getting paid for that that's so cool.
Time is worth something.
Oh, totally. But I
You
mean,
don't want,
if you're
you don't
taking
want to,
courses, like you don't get paid for taking courses and stuff. So that's
but you don't want that to be a barrier to someone doing something that they really want to do.
yeah. Gosh, it's so great. And so are you guys in talks with other organizations in Maine? Like, because it covers a small, I mean, it's a pretty it's a it's an area. There's more of Maine and there's so much land. And so it just seems like, I mean, are you talking to other people? My question. I'm just going to go back to that and stop talking.
Um, so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens as the state continues to pursue this analysis of what workforce programs already exist and what the state's role is in supporting workforce development in agriculture. Um,
Okay.
They'll be putting out a final report for that analysis in March. So we'll see where this goes.
All right. That's
But
amazing.
there's more needed for sure.
For sure. I mean, it just especially with a 5-year plan to end the hunger and to have more food grown in Maine than out of Maine. But I mean, it just that's a really big, awesome goal. 5 years. I love it. I love it. It's not that's a got big
Oh,
plans. All right. So I ask everybody when I interview folks on the podcast, like, what does the word sustainability mean to you? Kate, Harriet?
Harriet, if you need to jump off, I can stay on and answer this question, unless you want to answer the question before you go.
Yeah.
I can give a quick answer and then I do need to hop off. And thank you so much, Amy. Um, so I think for me, the first thing most people think of when they think of sustainability is the environmental impact of your actions and your choices, and making sure that you're having a positive impact on the environment around you for future generations. Um, I think the other piece for me is thinking about sort of the social connection and the emotional connection that you have to a place or to a community, um, and that's a really vital piece of sustainability in my mind.
Absolutely. I hear
You know,
that.
and that community both impacts sort of individual. Well, sorry, you can cut this part.
Oh, it's all good. I get that totally. And one of the things I say it often, I have a post-it note right behind my computer that says community sufficiency because I know so many people are like self-sufficient. I want to, take care of myself, but we got to go bigger.
Mhm. And the knowledge, the knowledge base in terms of how to live sustainably has to be held in that community.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Harriet. I appreciate all that you've done in the years that you've been with the the Merrymeeting Food Council and what you're continuing to do. I appreciate that a lot and for just all your knowledge and passion for this.
Thank you for having us on this morning, and I'm sure you and Kate will have a wonderful rest of your conversation. I'm sorry to hop off.
Thanks, Harriet.
Thank you.
Um,
So, Amy, I only have a couple more minutes too, but I'm happy to answer that
okay,
question.
please.
Um, I had a teacher once who, this was many years ago, but she said to me, she said, if someone asked you how your marriage was and your answer was, it's sustainable, it's like it has such a negative connotation, right? And like her point was that word is just, it basically, like the meaning of sustainable is to like maintain and like hold and like preserve, right? And like it's sort of like the status quo at this point is just awful, right? Like we're polluting, we're extracting, we're degrading environments and the
Right.
places that we live. Um and so, I think the like word regenerative became this sort of buzzword, right? That like
True
was the new
story.
sustainability is this word regenerative, which now has been like greenwashed and co-opted as well. Um, but I do think, I feel like sustainability, in its positive form would mean this repairing and this restoration and not just sustaining the current practice so that we can pass it off to future generations to do what they will with, but to actually like engage with land and engage with place as if we can make it better and because we can. And we look back to history and to like our indigenous friends who made, like, they didn't just sustain environments, they actually improved them with practices like through harvesting and digging, for example, they were improving soil, right? And so looking to those lessons, I think, will be vital for us as a species as we move forward.
Right. I mean, I've had a few guests who have kind of called that out as well. Like sustainability is not good enough, and I totally agree with that. And
Well, and
I
it's like semantics, right? A little bit. It's
Yeah,
sort of,
totally,
but it's a good
totally.
point. I loved that point. It's like the word feels not enough.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just a starting word. And also, you talked about the indigenous folks and they sort of like they worked with the earth because it is first and foremost in their lives. Like we can't exist without the earth, so we need to take care of the earth, and learn to work with it and make it better. And that's also just the simple phrase that we grew up with, like leave a room better than you found it, or leave the earth better than you found it. Like take care of it, nourish it. And I mean, it doesn't seem like a hard thing, but we've just gotten so far with our convenience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there was a piece of that too, of like engaging with the earth and just this like deep knowledge and understanding of systems and how they worked, and this worldview that like is really hard for us to comprehend as modern humans, as like domesticated humans, like this animist sort of connection to land and to these systems, right? Like seeing the world as alive, and as a relative. And I think, that's a practice that I am working so hard to unlearn my upbringing of like this, just like this extractive mentality, right? Of like the earth is mine to
Separate from it, or
to
yeah,
and I think, many of us have been ingrained, that's been ingrained in our heads, and it's hard to really even notice it, right? Until you sort of build that awareness. And I think it really, as an adult now, with all of those things, all those neural pathways in place, it's such a practice, right? To like let it go.
absolutely. I mean, we've felt this very separateness, like the earth is ours and we will treat it how we choose to, but we need, and like you said, like treat it like family, like we don't exist without it, and we need to, treat it like it matters. Um, but then so Kate, before you have to jump off, can you just tell us how to find Merrymeeting Food Council and the Farm Skills Group, and like how to find, follow, be part of that
Yes,
before
absolutely.
February 1st?
Yeah, so you can follow the Merrymeeting Food Council. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Um, and our website is the Merrymeeting Food Council, or sorry, merrymeetingfoodcouncil.org. Not no the, just merrymeetingfoodcouncil.org. And you can find the farm skills um, training description and application as well at merrymeetingfoodcouncil.org/farm dash skills. If you go to the splash page of the website, you'll also be able to find it, but our application is at that address. It's a very simple application. Again, like you all said, the deadline is February 1st, but if folks want to apply after that deadline, they can, and they will be considered for next year. Um, so, follow us, like us, engage with us, and check out, as Harriet said, we have lots of other things that we're working on. And so, just seeing the range of projects that the Food Council is involved with is pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Oh my goodness. And thank you also, Kate, for all that you're doing and the promotion of this. And I just love everything you guys are doing, and I'm so grateful to have learned more about it today. And all the links will be in the show notes, you guys. So definitely check this out. If you have any interest in being doing farm work, please check this out. And you've got until next Saturday.
Thank you so much for promoting this and for inviting us on. It's been really nice chatting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate.